The budget, we started back in January with a board retreat, talking about goals and objectives for the year, to review where we've been, discuss where we're going, and at that time we gave our county manager a pretty clear directive that did not have any desire to raise taxes, that we had a concern, and I'm paraphrasing it, I think all the members agree with me, that headed into revaluation. We want to make sure we certainly provide the services that we need for our citizens, that they deserve to have. At the same time, we want to take a strong look at anywhere we can possibly cut and save money, preserve our fund balance, et cetera, heading into revaluation, because we don't know exactly where that's going to be, what impact it might have on our citizens. So with that said, our county manager began working, and I know you guys have, and I've talked to you many times during the process, and I feel like he's done an excellent job of talking to department heads, county employees, communicating back and forth with them. So Derek will give you the floor, and I think he's going to just go through what he said to me today. I think with an overall
yes, sir.
snapshot of the budget, his recommendation, and then we'll, having not seen that before tonight, we'll take that under advisement, and I would ask you to be thinking about, we need to have probably have a budget workshop between us if we got any specific questions we want to go over the county manager.
Okay.
Derek?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. And I'll just first like to say that it is an honor for me to stand here before you and present to you my first budget message. And ever since I began working in county government and have been involved in it, this is the place I've always wanted to be standing. And it is truly a privilege to be able to stand here before you tonight, before the citizens of Macon County, and present this budget to you. I couldn't have ever accomplished this without a lot of help from a lot of great people. Lori probably has nightmares about me asking her questions, and as I have asked her many questions, and she's been there, I've called on her time and time again, and she's guided me through this process, helped me with the numbers, and helped me to understand the big picture. I'm very grateful to her for that. I'm grateful to all the department heads here tonight, the sheriff, Chris Stahl, Andy Muncie, John Fay, Richard Leitner, Mike Decker, that have participated in budget discussions with me and been willing to have some tough discussions and prioritize, look at things that are very important that they'll be needing now, as well as some things that can be better left addressed in the future. And in doing that, we feel that we have presented you a budget that represents financial responsibility, leaves us in a very stable position, as the chairman alluded to. We're going to be heading into some very uncertain times with the revaluation. But before we get into the budget discussion for the coming fiscal year, I would like to first take an opportunity to look back and celebrate where we have been in fiscal year 13 and 14. We've been able to accomplish many notable projects, including the groundbreaking at Parker Meadows. And if you'll recall, in fiscal year 13-14, the board had voted to appropriate $500,000 from fund balance to move forward with that project. Other notable projects in this fiscal year include the purchase of the Zachary Park property in Highlands, the local match funding that went towards improvements at the Macon County Airport, and an increased contribution to the Macon County Schools operating expenses. It totaled $7.3 million in fiscal year 13 and 14, and if you will recall, that came at the board's approving an additional $200,000 on top of the manager's $7.1 million recommended budget for operating expenses to the school system. I think when we look at these accomplishments that have occurred in fiscal year 13-14, it becomes clear the high level of priority this board places on economic development, the development of our children, and the well-being of the citizens of this county now and in the years that come. And I commend you for that. Also, it's commendable that we have been able to accomplish all of this through some of the worst economic times since the Great Depression, as we all know and are well aware, yet our financial position still remains strong. We have kept the lowest ad valorem property tax rate in the state. We have been able to retain an available fund balance of 29%. And when you look around the state, counties our size in population, the average for available fund balance in those counties, according to the latest figures from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, is 27%. If you look at the state average, it's 25%. And as you can see, as I've alluded to, at 29%, we're well above the average of both of those. The fund balance is a very important number as it provides us with a high degree of financial security, allows us to be prepared for unexpected emergencies, and contributes to funding, receiving favorable funding when we go and pursue capital projects. We have a tax collection rate. This year we use a tax collection rate of 96.51%. That is a very high tax collection rate, and that is very commendable to our tax department for being able to allow us to enjoy such a high tax collection rate. All of these things that I've just mentioned are indicative of our strong financial position, and they're direct contributors to the A+ bond rating that Macon County has today. As the chairman mentioned earlier, the January 25th budget work session was kind of the starting point for this budget cycle. And at that meeting, as you had mentioned, the directive was given for no tax increase. You acknowledged that the employees of Macon County provided a high level of service to the citizens of Macon County, and further indicated that you wished for that service level to remain uncompromised. Lastly, we discussed the uncertainty that will accompany the revaluation and how the effect will be distributed across Macon County. And in February of the following month, the board voted to move forward with the completion of the entire Parker Meadows project. The budget that I'm proposing for fiscal year 14-15, it proposes no tax increase. It incorporates the completion of the Parker Meadows project, and it uses no money from available fund balance to fund operating expenses. By taking this approach to the fiscal year 14-15 budget, we have put ourselves in an excellent financial position to address any uncertainties that the future might hold. Furthermore, administration working with department heads will embark in some planning initiatives in fiscal year 14-15 that can potentially save the county money in years to come. And I'll highlight those and speak to those a little bit later in the presentation. Maintaining a healthy fund balance. As I've just stated, the fund balance provides us with a high degree of financial security, and it's something that we should look after and be protective of. The chart before you right now illustrates the expenditures and the fund balance from fiscal year 11-12 through fiscal year 14-15 as proposed. As you can see, in fiscal year 13 and 14, our expenses increased by $618,000, around $618,000 from fiscal year 12-13, and our available fund balance is projected to decrease in fiscal year 13 and 14 by $1.6 million, leaving it at $13,235,000. As proposed, the 14-15 fiscal year budget is 2.9% less in projected expenditures than that of fiscal year 13 and 14. Furthermore, this budget, our fund balance is projected to remain at 29% due to only $366,642 being allocated toward the completion of the Parker Meadows facility. Now, if you'll recall, the board voted to appropriate $500,000 originally in fiscal year 14 and 15. But this allocation of $366,642 is representative of an additional $133,458 being able to be absorbed into our operating budget. The reduction in expenditures and our fund balance position is due to a conservative budget approach by department heads in working with administration, which has led to a reduction in expenditures, the retirement of debt, and a slight increase in sales tax revenue of 2.32%. If you look on the far right, these numbers in red illustrate the net effect that we would have received if all requests from departments and outside agencies had been honored in full. As you can see, our expenditures would have been close to $50 million, and our fund balance would have declined to somewhere around 21% projected. In the fiscal year 2014-15 budget, our expenditures are projected to be $45,521,000 roughly. I still have a hard time working with them double-digit million numbers. I've never had to say them in my whole life much, so it's kind of hard from somebody off Town to throwing around all them numbers like that. But as you can see here, what I've done here is highlighted the functions that these expenditures go towards. And it is notable that approximately 70% of these expenditures are in the functions of public safety, education, and human services. This chart also, if you will look, it has like under public safety here, you will see plus $49,551. General government, you will see a decrease of $142,668. What that is representative of the increase or decrease in this budget from fiscal year 13-14. And I have included and will highlight some of these functions, especially the public safety, education, and human services, as well as a few other functions as they highlight new priorities and obligations that we will be facing in the coming fiscal year. First, in looking at general government, you'll notice that this function has decreased by $142,000. General government is all the departments that make the county run internally, like your garage, your maintenance, your information technology, your human resources, your administration, your tax collections. It's all the inner workings of the county government. Even with this decrease, we've been able to add one mechanic in the garage. And currently the garage has 4 mechanics. Our fleet has increased to approximately around 300 vehicles. And the workload as these vehicles increase has continued to be placed on maintenance, on the maintenance workers at the garage, the mechanics. And it's also important to note that in this fiscal year, many departments requested vehicles, and those requests were postponed due, of course, to revenue constraints. Therefore, I'm expecting, because of that, an increase in the maintenance that we're going to have on our current vehicles. So I felt that more than justified adding a mechanic to the garage. Also in this function here, we have had changes to the election laws, which has led to an increase in the Board of Elections budget. And if anybody's been keeping up with that, the changes in the laws have basically required them to revamp the whole way they do things. And there are more changes, as I understand, coming down the pike. So, also in this function, there's increased funding to the tax department to cover expenses associated with the revaluation, mainly postage and advertising. When you talk about sending out 36,000 tax bills, that's a lot of postage. That's a lot of advertising. And even, again, within this function, we have been able to do all this, yet this function is still going to be about $150,000 less than it was in fiscal year 13 and 14. If you'll notice in public safety, we had an increase of $49,551. And I can sit here and assure you that that is not public safety. First of all, that's inclusive of your EMS, your emergency management, building inspections is included in there, the sheriff's department, detention center, all the workings that are associated with public safety are in this function right here. And I can assure you that this increase of close to $50,000 is justifiable, as the increase in the food service line item alone, and using the budget of one department, the detention center, we have saw meals increase 35 cents per meal per day since last fiscal year. This is combined with an increase in the average length of stay for the inmates to 5 days, which is a result of higher bonding amounts. And due to that, we have seen clearly that the actual expenditures we're going to incur in this fiscal year is going to justify a $50,000 increase in the food service line item for the detention center. While we're still on the detention center, I didn't know this, and the more I got to looking into it, it's just whenever an inmate becomes incarcerated, Macon County is liable for all of that inmate's medical expenses. We have to cover all of them. This has resulted in an increase of $100,000 in the medical treatment line item for the detention center. Last year, $100,000 was budgeted. This year, we budgeted $200,000. When we go through the budget work sessions and you gentlemen begin to look through the budget, you can see in looking at the year-to-date expenditures that this year we have already far exceeded the line item in medical treatment that was approved last year. So again, this increase in medical treatment and food service line item of $150,000, if you take that out of there, then public safety, just due to that, is $100,000 less than it was last year. And those are things, again, that at this point are out of our control. But I would like to say that we have included in this budget, we have, working with the sheriff and Andy Shields, we have been able to locate some insurance that we'll be able to purchase on inmates that, you know, it's going to, we feel it will substantially reduce this line item. So while we're taking a conservative budget approach here, there's services, that's your health department, DSS, senior services, there's a reduction here of $244,000. This is due primarily to a decrease in the community transformation grant. That is why that particular function has decreased primarily. In recreation and cultural, you have Macon County Recreation, Highlands Recreation, and a few other things in there, but those are the two big ones. As you'll notice here, there's an increase of $258,000. That is due primarily to the $500,000 appropriated in fiscal year 14-15 for the Parker Meadows project. You've got that, and then at the same time, you've got $225,000 coming off for renovations to the Highlands pool. That will not be in 14-15. That was a one-time appropriation in 13-14, so that leaves that function right there around $225,000. In education, you will see a reduction of $215,658. This is primarily due to, in fiscal year 13-14, the county appropriated $17,500 to be used towards the master plan for the Southwestern Community College facility. And I think I've saw that plan many times, and it's very clear the effort and the hard work that went into that plan and how that plan lays out Southwestern Community College's needs over the next 30 years. In light of that, this $215,658 reduction is results of the removal of $200,000 from the SEC budget, which was going towards the operating expenses at the Jackson County campus. And in going through their budget and looking at that, I contacted board members, had conversations with Dr. Thomas, and in conclusion, that $200,000 began being appropriated prior to the construction of the Macon County campus. And as our campus has grown here, and as our campus is beginning to thrive, and as we see the needs that are going to be coming from this campus in the future, I did not feel it was sustainable to continue providing the Jackson County campus with $200,000 in operating expenses. I also talked with Swain County, and which is Southwestern has campuses in Macon County, Jackson County, and Swain County. Jackson County and Swain County do not give any money to the Macon campus for operating expenses. And just wanted to make that, to put that out there as well. The funding for the Macon County school system was left at fiscal year 13-14 levels in this budget. The debt service fund, you'll see a reduction of $1.1 million here. That is due, that's pretty clear cut there. We had $1.1 million roll off in debt service. The capital expenditures in the 14-15 budget total $1,182,471. I think it is important to note here that all of these items were able to be absorbed in the operating budget, aside from the $500,000 appropriation for Parker Meadows. The capital items, as you will see here, are focused primarily toward our priority areas that past funding has indicated. If you will look, the Sheriff's Department, we have put into the budget $85,000 for 2 patrol SUVs and a patrol sedan. We put a firing range allotment of $5,000 in there. And emergency management, again, another component of the public safety function. We budgeted $125,000 for a new ambulance, $20,000 for the replacement of a roof and gutter system at the EMS base. In transit, we have put $109,000 for 2 lift-equipped vans. That is a reimbursement. The county will be reimbursed at 80% with federal money, at 90% with federal money in the purchase of these vans. The other $93,000 for grant-funded vehicles is the VTCLI grant, which again from federal money, county will be reimbursed 80%, and the remaining 20% will be distributed among the 6 counties participating in this VTCLI grant program. So the 109 and 93, while we had to appropriate it, we will be getting reimbursed for it. So that's noteworthy, and thought I should throw that out there for you. The soil and water conservation, we budgeted for a 4-wheel drive truck, and in looking at need and looking at length of time since a vehicle had been purchased, they've not had a new vehicle in 27 years. So that I felt that is more than justifiable, as they have just received through grant funding a new lime spreader that was about an $18,000 piece of equipment. They haul that, tiller, they do surveying, they're doing field work all the time, and they're in need of a vehicle that can better enable them to do that. In the moving to the human service function, we have appropriated $68,000 for the refurbishment of the motor roller vehicle. This again provides dental services to children in our schools, and it's again in line with the priorities of the board, not only to support our children but to support the health of the community, and that $68,000 is representative of that. In recreation parks, you'll notice $22,500. That is half of the equipment that was requested by Parks and Rec that will go toward the Parker Meadows project. In approving that project, the board had acknowledged that operating expenses within the Parks and Rec department would increase, and thus we have decided, only since the opening date of the park is still uncertain, we decided to budget half this year to allow us to distribute that $45,000 cost over 2 years instead of taking it all in one. Again, the Parker Meadows project, $500,000 from fund balance, which turned out, as I said earlier, to be only $366. We were able to absorb $133 in the operating budget, and $99,035 for the capital expenses of the Macon County school system. As we've stated, schools and public education is a priority for Macon County. When we take our budget and combine everything and look at current expenses, supplements, solid waste fees, capital outlay, and debt service that Macon County provides to the school system, that accounts for about $9.5 million. That's around 21% of our budget, with the remaining outside agencies and county departments making up around $36 million. So that just goes to illustrate the high level of priority that Macon County has continued to place on public education in this fiscal year. And as I said, this budget is representative and increases in expenditures in some of the functions, such as the recreation function, is indicative of new priorities for the board. And every time I look at this picture, that's just that's pretty neat to think that that we're going to be able to have something like this in Macon County. And the financial position that I talked about earlier, our A+ bond rating, our stable fund balance, that's contributed to us receiving a 2.29% interest rate on $1.8 million over a 10-year term. And that is very, very commendable, and again, is a testament to the financial position that we here in Macon County have been able to obtain. When we look at our revenues, the revenues are constant. We haven't seen a dramatic increase in the property and ad valorem tax. It remains around $26 million. We have seen an increase in sales tax of 2.32% over projected fiscal year 13-14. So we have been able to achieve some additional revenue through that. As I said earlier, in the coming fiscal year, administration, working along with county departments, is going to begin planning for our future. I think that it is key that these capital expenditures, such as vehicles and computer equipment, that when combined become pretty substantial expenditures for a county our size. As you look around other North Carolina counties, many counties are going to these prioritization systems, and in doing that, they're able to save money, because this systematic approach to budgeting ensures that only the most urgent needs are funded based on a set of established criteria. Allows us to save some money in the years to come, and I look forward to being able to work on that. And we ain't got to pay nobody to do it, because we're going to do it in-house. We also need to update some of our policies, including computer usage policies, our financial policies, and our personnel policies. I'm going to recommend that a policy review committee be established to go through these policies, point out some of the weak areas, point out some of the areas that we could use improvement on, and point out some of the areas that make us a stronger and better county. And in doing that, all the suggested changes will be brought to the Board of Commissioners during fiscal year 2015. Lastly, we're going to address performance measurement. Administration, again, will work with the department heads to collect data from these departments that is illustrative of workload, efficiency, and effectiveness. In other words, this data, when we gather it, is going to answer the question of how busy each department is, and that's based on number of cases cleared, number of permits issued, number of service calls received. How busy are you? And then we're going to go into, and we're going to put an efficiency measure in that. The cost per unit of service, average time per case cleared, average number of cases, services per unit. And in doing this, we're also going to answer how effective that each department is in fulfilling their mission by establishing satisfaction ratings, number of complaints received, etc. Once established, this will allow us to identify trends, point out strengths and weaknesses within each department, and ensure that every dollar spent in Macon County is increasing the efficiency and the effectiveness of our operations. As we have acknowledged, we are going to be facing many challenges in the coming fiscal year. We're going to be, in January, our new tax values will be set. The theme of this budget, again, has been gearing down for the revaluation. We are facing some uncertainty as well in our health insurance fund. Fiscal year 14 and 15 is going to be a year where county employees and administration and the board and our insurance providers are going to have to come together and look at some solutions to some problems we are facing in that fund. And last but not least, as the state contributions to public education continue to decline, we have to be aware of that as a county and know that counties like us all across the state these costs are being redirected to them, and we have to think and be aware of that and be ready to address those. Our tax reevaluation, I'm glad Richard's here. That's another person I've rung their phone off the hook for the last 3 months. He's probably ready to kill me. But I'll try to explain, when I talk about uncertainty and we look at the effect that this tax reevaluation is going to have on our population, I'm going to try to explain that to you in the best way I can. Currently, our tax base is about $9.3 billion. When you apply our collection rate at our current tax rate of 0.279, we receive $25 million in revenue off of that. Following the revaluation, our tax base is projected to decrease by 21%. That's $2 billion. And that 21% becomes critical, so put it in the back of your mind. At our new tax base, $7.3 million at a revenue neutral tax rate. And a revenue neutral tax rate is the tax rate that we will have to come up to be able to get the same amount of revenue at a lower tax base. So, as you can see here, 7.3 billion, excuse me, that's with a B. It's 25, right here is 25 million at 0.35. So, and again, that 7.3 is representative of a 21% decline in the aggregate, Macon County as a whole. Now, what effect is that going to have on the population? Okay, right here, as you'll see, Home 1 in the 2007 reappraisal was appraised at $235,000, and these are actual cases from the revaluation. At a tax rate of 0.279, this home in 2007 was paying $655.65 in taxes. In 2015, the reappraised value of this home was $218,000. That's only a decline of 7%. Now, the rule that we can apply here, any time that a property declines less than the decline of Macon County properties in the aggregate, that property is going to get a tax increase. So, as this home declined by only 7%, that means that it's going to get a $118.25 tax increase, even though the value of the property declined. Home 2, if you will look, in 2007 was valued at $1.5 million. At that tax rate of 0.279, that home at that time was paying $4,100 in taxes. In 2015, the reappraised value of that home was $860,000. That is a decline of 42%, or 21% more than the aggregate. So that property is going to get a tax decrease of about $1,132. So the simplest way I can explain it, the revenue neutral tax rate applies to the aggregate. That's what we need to make up that 21% that Macon County as a whole lost in property values. Now, when you apply that to individual property owners, not all individual properties decline by the same amount as the aggregate. Those properties that decline less than the aggregate will get a tax increase. Those properties that decline by more than the aggregate will get a tax decrease. And if you look at the homes of Macon County residents, according to the Franklin Board of Realtors, in 2013, the average home sale price was $118,000. If you look at the United States Census Bureau factors, the average median household income for Macon County residents is less than $50,000. It's around $47,000. So that tells me, in looking at that the majority of our residents, based on that average sale price, and that median household income are living in modest homes. And modest homes, such as the $235,000 home, are those homes that are going to get a tax increase. So that is why that this budget has been structured the way it has. It allows us to head into the revaluation and address any uncertainties that might occur from it. Our health insurance fund. If you will look, there are 3 items in the health insurance fund here that are listed. And if I could go to my book there, out here for this one. If you will look here, expenses, revenues, and net position. Those are the three things that, in looking at the health insurance fund, you have to remain aware of. Revenues in the health insurance fund come from 2 sources: county contribution and employee contribution. Expenses in the health insurance fund account for all medical, prescription, dental claims, insurance premiums, and administrative fees minus the reinsurance cost. In this health insurance fund, when we talk about net position, that is the amount by which our assets exceed our liabilities. It acts similar to the fund balance in our county's general fund. Basically, every time that a profit is made from the health insurance fund, the net position increases. Every time that we experience a loss or our expenses exceed our revenues going into the fund, that net position decreases. Over the since 2009 through 2014 as projected, that net position has declined by 70%. And in 2009, it's important to note that throughout this whole process, from 2009 to 2014, throughout this whole time period, employee contributions have remained the same. Employees have I've paid the same amount into that fund in 2009 as I do now. But county contributions have decreased. Across the board, they have decreased since 2009 by $350 in every category. And we have employee only, parent-child, employee spouse, employee children, and family. And as I go back to, revenues come from 2 sources: employee contribution and county contribution. When that contribution began decreasing, that's when you see here the expenses begin exceeding our revenues and our net position declines. On average, from 2009 to 2014, $818,233 is taken annually. At the close of fiscal year 13-14, our net position is expected to be $1.8 million. In fiscal year 14-15, however, $1.2 million will be appropriated to cover the projected loss. And you say it's only $818,000 a year. Why do you appropriate $1.2 million? Well, in 2013, we had a claims year of $1.3 million, and it's just it's one of those things. It's crystal ball. It's crystal ball economics. You got to have a crystal ball to peg it. If we assume that this entire $1.2 million that we're going to appropriate in the next fiscal year gets used, that leaves for 2015 only $598,000 in our net position. And go back and apply that average to $818,000 won't cover it. But I realize that this is a worst case scenario. Hopefully, we will not experience a claims year like this. But we also must keep in mind, as we make substantial changes to this plan, which we're inevitably going to have to make, we have to come under the provisions of the Affordable Care Act. And in looking at counties and municipalities that have had to come under the provisions of the ACA, we have saw annual rate increases of the Bessemer City rates increased 31% when they came under those provisions. The city of Roxborough, their rates increased 17% when they came under the provisions. And on average, counties and municipalities in North Carolina are experiencing increases of 9 to 10% in rates when they come under that plan. So just like, we need to keep our fund balance healthy, as we go into uncertainties in changing insurance plans, we need to have a healthy net position that will enable us to address those uncertainties as they come. Lastly, the last challenge we're facing is the inability to include the final portion of the pay plan or the inability to include a cost of living increase in this proposed budget. And this, to me, has been the greatest challenge, as you know, I get to work with these employees every day and see them stay late, come early, and like I said, I couldn't stand up here tonight and give you this presentation without them. And you know, we just, it's going to cost about $500,000 to implement this final phase of the pay plan. And this final phase of the pay plan, the first phase that went into effect in May of 2013 was about $820,000. That's what it cost. And that it brought all your entry-level positions up, of course, and you guys remember this, to the minimum grade, as well as a 2% salary increase to all other employees. This last remaining portion is so critical because that's those long-serving employees that have been in the position for over 8 years. Those are your 25-year employees, your 30-year employees. Those are the ones that we give the plaques to and stand up here and honor. And those are the ones that in many cases are leading the departments. And it is crucial. And then as 14-15 comes and we see what these challenges bring and we're able to overcome those, as I know we will, then I would really like to look at that again in 15-16 and hopefully be able to do something there for those employees. That's a big thing for me. We have left in the budget the 1% annual bonus, Christmas bonus that the employees get, and they're grateful for that. And we also recommended in this budget 16 hours of annual leave to be given to each employee, as we are again unable to implement a cost of living increase and the final phase of that. In sum, the proposed 14-15 budget is $45,521,122. As required by North Carolina General Statute, the revenues and expenditures are balanced. Our fund balance available remains at 29%, $13,235,568. This budget is representative of a level of service that we can operate at solely on the revenues we receive. And last but certainly not least, the high quality of service that Macon County provides to the citizens of this county will not be compromised. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for the support you've given me through this process and the opportunity that you've given me to go through this process. And I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Like I tell you, there ain't no place I'd rather be than right here. And the employees, I can't say enough about them. You can have the finest things, the finest capital equipment, and the best programs and the best software, but if you don't got people, you can't turn the light switch on. So that's I can't say enough about how that each one of them has worked with me during this process and been willing to make tough decisions and make sacrifices, as I just went over in the previous slide. And I want to thank them. And that's the budget as recommended, and look forward to scheduling a work session or work sessions that we didn't include any set dates. I know all of y'all's schedules are very busy and you got a lot of things going on, so I was hoping for some open dialogue at this meeting where we could discuss some potential dates for that. And if you guys want to do that, whatever time, that would be good. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Derek, obviously, we've not seen the detailed budget, but looking at what you presented, you're recommending a reduction in expenditures, maintaining our fund balance, no tax increase. I think that looking at the big picture, you have met or perhaps succeeded our goals. And from my standpoint, I'd like to say thank you for reading this budget. I think you've done an excellent job. You certainly met my expectations. So we'll get into the details. There may be some things we'll make some small changes in one way or the other. I don't know. That's up to this board as a whole, not me, but I'm very pleased with what you did. You know, I would recommend, and Derek mentioned this too, today we're talking briefly, we need to have a public hearing on the budget. That will need to be at our June meeting. I do not think we're going to pass the budget that night because if we're truly a public hearing, it's here. And let's continue the meeting for the next week, Mr. Manager, is what we talked about.
Yes, sir.
Part of the schedule. So that would be the 17th. June 10th we'll have a public hearing. Then June 17th we'll meet again to vote on the budget as presented or as amended by the board. So with that said, if we back up, this is May 13th. If we look at 2 weeks from tonight, I'm just throwing the date out. That's the 27th of May. That is legislative the next day. How about Monday the 26th?
Memorial Day.
That's everyone's schedule. I'm open to those.
You got Saturdays,
We can do it on that.
24th and 31st.
I'm gone the week. I'm gone the 19th through the 24th. All that week.
And I'm gone the 1st through the 6th.
So we probably need to try to meet sometime the 26th through the 31st. What's everybody look like?
Well, the 8th.
The legislative day is the 28th.
28th,
all day.
and then we'll leave it, have the last meeting at 10 o'clock on the 29th. And that's scholarship night at the high school.
Yeah, that way.
Scholarship night. I don't know what, but that's. We usually do them Saturday mornings, early, I don't.
About on the 31st.
Whenever y'all tell me to be there, I'll be there.
It's up to you.
31st. Saturday.
You got ball game? No, I work.
Well, you need to go back. Okay. Thank you. Because Ronnie's gone, you said the 1st to the 6th.
That's right.
And we really, we could wait for the 7th, but, you know, we're up here. That's what we do. I'm a little worried about May 31st.
Yeah, we'll do it. Well, what's next week, Kevin? Today's Tuesday.
Kevin's gonna be gone next week.
I'm gone, but that'll be the 24th. We're up to 31st. Looks like, not convenient for you, but. Lori, is that gonna give you feel clear that?
Don't worry.
I'd rather do it on a Saturday and try to get it all done in one day and just be done with it.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, if you have any questions,
What time you start the show?
9, they're good.
Lunchtime, dude.
Huh?
That's lunchtime for me, Jim.
Yes.
So you gonna recess this week till then?
Yes, we will.
9 o'clock?
That's fine.
Yeah.
And do we want to meet here, or would we rather make somewhere we can sit around a table and talk to Derek about that briefly earlier? Sort of hard to spread out and see things and whatever here. Do we want
Southwest.
Can we use
Which
Southwestern
Southwestern
Square
right here?
Have you cut the budget, been on that scene?
All the funding for Macon County campus
Oh, it's in
are at current year level.
As long as we don't go to Jackson County, we're okay.
We probably can't go to Jack.
So the SEC,
Anybody object to SEC? Work. Mr. Chairman, would you make that contact. All right, so we'll,
And anybody that needs to come, anybody wants to come and approach the commissioners about what's in their budget, any department heads, anybody, let's do it all that day,
that's the
right?
time to do it.
Good to me.
And that's
What time?
9 o'clock.
Doesn't work for me.
Okay.
Okay. That day doesn't work for me. That's okay.
And that will be an open meeting, so the public is invited to come, media, everybody. We might will make that notice. I'll announce our intention to continue tonight's meeting till the 31st. And then we have after that, we'll have our next regular meeting, which is the 10th. At that time, we'll have a public hearing, that's right, Mr. Manager. And then it would be my suggestion that we recess that meeting until the 17th. That gives us another week, and we'll come back on the 17th. Without that. Everybody okay with that? All right.
Good job.
Thank you.